I'm Anil Kumar. Welcome to my series on trigonometric functions. We are going to look into range of composite functions. We have taken up trigonometric functions to understand this topic. Let f of x be equal to sine of pi by 6 times sine of x, where x belongs to real numbers. And let g of x be equal to pi by 2 sine of x, where x belongs to real numbers. We need to find the range of h of x, which is f of g of x. So it is a function for these two functions, right? And b is, we need to find the range of p of x of h of g of x, right? So that means one more inside. So like this, we will see how to work with such examples. Now these are very important questions which will help you to understand the concepts of working with composite functions. So what do we need to understand here is the basics about sine x first. So let me just sketch the graph here just to show you what sine x is so that we can, go ahead and find the domain and range. Domain is all real numbers as mentioned here, but as far as the sine range is concerned, it is between plus and minus 1, correct? So the maximum value is 1 and the minimum value is minus 1. That is the range for the sine x. Sine x is your inside function, so it's kind of important to understand. We are also working with pi by 2 and pi by 6. Now at pi by 2, actually it has the maximum value of 1. This is at pi by 2. And the minimum value of minus 1 is at 3 pi by 2. Correct? As far as pi by 6 is concerned, you can always use a special triangle to understand the value of sine for pi by 6. So let me just make this triangle here. We are going to refer to this while solving the question. So the sides of this triangle are 1, 2, square root 3, where that angle is pi by 6. So sine of pi by 6 is basically equal to half pi by 6, right? So for sine of pi by 6, it is half. Now with that in mind, let us see how to find domain and range of such a complex function. Well, the domain is real numbers. We'll concentrate only on the range in this particular case. So let me first write down what h of x is. So we are given f of x as sine of pi by 6 sine of x and g of x as pi by 2 sine of x. Now when we say h of x is f of g of x, it means that within this function we have to replace x with g of x. So what does it become? So it becomes f of g of x, which is pi by 2 sine of x. Correct? So if I substitute this value here, I get the function sine of pi by 6 sine of, and instead of this x, we have to write all that. Correct? So what we get here is pi by 2 sine of x, close both the brackets. Does it make sense? So now the question here is to find range of all this. Sine of pi by 6 of sine of pi by 2 of sine x. Does make sense to you, right? So that is our first question, part A, right? This is our part A. And part B is that we have to do h of g of x. That means this x will again be replaced by all this, and then we'll have to figure out the range. So let's see how to solve this. Well, we'll begin from inside. That is the key. So inside function is sine x for us, correct? So let's see. Sine x is given to us. And what is the range of sine x? The range of sine x in its entire domain is from plus 1 to minus 1. So we know sine x is always greater than equal to minus 1 and is less than equal to plus 1, right? For any given value of x. Now, if I move outside I got this pi by 2. So I'll now multiply by pi by 2 all the three terms. So we get minus pi by 2 is less than equal to pi by 2 sine of x less than equal to pi by 2, right? So that means we started with sine of x, we multiplied by pi by 2. Now we have to check sine of all this, right? So sine of all this, that is to say, we need to write what is sine of, within bracket, all this. So let me write this first, inside bracket, sine x. So that becomes a part of function. So we'll take sine on all the three terms, right, in this inequality. So here we get sine of minus pi by 2. And on this side we get sine of pi by 2. So we are taking sine of the function. It is a continuous function within the domain, and therefore we can do this process, right? So what is sine of minus pi by 2? Well, sine of minus pi by 2 is minus 1. So we get minus 1 here, and then we get 1 there, right? So we have sine of pi by 2 sine x, which should be less than equal to 1. Okay. So we have done up to this point, right? Now we need to multiply by pi by 6. So once I multiply by pi by 6, it becomes minus pi by 6 less than equal to pi by 6 of sine of pi by 2 of sine x less than equal to plus pi by 6. Perfect. Now we are in the outermost circuit. So we could now write sine of all this and take sine pi by 6. So we get sine of all this, which is pi by 6, sine of pi by 2 sine x, right? So all this will be sine of pi by 6 on this side, right? So this is sine of pi by 6, and here we have sine of minus pi by 6. Now what is sine of pi by 6? Sine of pi by 6 is half, and sine of minus pi by 6 is minus half, right? And therefore these values are, let me just push this page a bit and then write down the solution. So this value is actually minus half. So minus half less than equal to sine of pi by 6 sine of pi by 2 sine of x, right? So, and this bracket close is less than equal to half, since sine of pi by 6 is half. So the range of h of x is what? So we get our answer, that is the range of h of x is from minus pi by 2, minus half, to plus half, correct? So that is how we get our solution. So I hope the process is clear, right? So that is how you could find the range of a composite function, correct? Now let's do part B, where the function h of x will now be used as a composite function, and we'll find the range of p of x, which is h of g of x. Perfect. So let's take it on a fresh page. Here's part B. We have to find range for p of x, which is h of g of x. So I've already written h of g of x here for you. So we have another function inside as pi by 2 sine x. Do you see that part? Correct? So we need to find the range of this particular function. The process is exactly what we did. So I'd like you to pause the video and then get the solution, and then you can check with my solution, right? So basically we need to begin from the center part, which is sine x, correct? So we can write this as, let me go with different colors this time. So we have sine x here. So sine x, you know, is between two limits, which is minus 1 and plus 1, correct? Now the second step here is to multiply by pi by 2. So when we multiply by pi by 2, we get here minus pi by 2 less than equal to pi by 2 of sine x. And here we get plus pi by 2. Clear? Now what is the next step? Next step is we need to take sine of this, right? So we need to take sine of all this. So inside we get sine of pi by 2 sine x. And on the other two sides, we have to take sine of pi by 2. Now what is sine of pi by 2? Well, let's do it in two steps. So we'll write sine of pi by 2 here and sine of minus pi by 2, right? And we know minus will give me minus 1, so we get here minus 1, and on this side we get plus 1, correct? And inside we have our sine of pi by 2 sine x, right? So we have done that much. Now the next step is to include pi by 2, right? So we'll now include this pi by 2. Multiplying by pi by 2, we get minus pi by 2 here, and then pi by 2 there, right? Sine of pi by 2 sine x, and there we get pi by 2. Then we have to take the sine of this function, correct? So when we take sine of this function, we get sine of pi by 2 sine of pi by 2 sine x, sine of pi by 2, right? And on this side, this is greater than or equal to sine of minus pi by 2. Now sine of minus pi by 2 is minus 1. Clear? So that is how we actually progress, right? And sine of pi by 2 is 1, right? So next step is we need to multiply by pi by 6. So we get minus pi by 6 less than or equal to pi by 6 sine of pi by 2 sine of pi by 2 sine x is less than or equal to pi by 6, right? And then finally, we get to the outermost, which for us is sine of all this, correct? So we get sine of minus pi by 6 should be less than or equal to sine of pi by 6 sine of pi by 2 sine of again pi by 2 sine x, and then we have to close this bracket, that bracket, and the final bracket to get this as sine of pi by 6. Now what is sine of pi by 6 equal to? Well, sine of pi by 6 is half, and sine of minus pi by 6 is minus half. So we get minus half here, sine of all this, right? Which is our question. So I hope you understand how we can do function of function in this fashion, right? Perfect. So the range for this is what? So the range for this is minus half to plus half. That is how we could do it. Perfect. So I'd like you to go through this solution once again and see how we can gradually work with the composite functions. Now, in your test, there could be different functions, but the idea here is to work from inside out, right? So that is the policy, to work with composite functions, right? So start with the inside function, move outwards, you will get your solution. I hope that makes sense. Feel free to write your comment, share your views, and if you like and subscribe to my videos, that'd be great. Thanks for watching and all the best.